We are live. Hi, I'm Dawn, and I'm here with Dylann, Marilyn, Kelly, and Sharon Wray. We're Romance Happy Hour. Most of you know us already. And Dylann, why don't you introduce yourself again and what you are working on?
I'm Dylann Crush. I write contemporary romance with sizzle, sass, heat, and heart. And I am working on, same as last time, I'm working on 3 projects right now. Working on my Radish story, betting on the bartender, and I'm about halfway through that. So I've got still quite a ways to go on that one. And then I've also got third full-length book up in the Lovebird Cafe series that's up for pre-order right now, and I'm working on that, and also working on book 2 for the new series that will come out next summer with Berkeley. So yes, I'm getting people confused, and the Lovebird Cafe series is written in first person, and the other books are in third, and so I feel like I'm constantly getting everything all mixed up. So we'll see what happens.
Fun. So I was going to say hi to Linda, and she said yeehaw, so I was going to say my little hat.
Yes, if you're listening to us on the podcast, this is our, it's a week before Halloween right now, and so Dawn just showed up after work in what she had on, and I put on double horns, so just kidding.
So I ran up and grabbed my cowgirl outfit, so we're dressed up for Halloween.
A little bit.
I'm in my jewelry hat that my husband bought for me from the county fair years ago. And but to what I'm working on, I am working on book 3 in my Montana Girls series, and I know I've had readers wanting this for like years. So it's an American historical. It's Justine's story from the Montana Girls series. So it's fun. It'll be released in a box set next year. And I am also editing the Coast Guard book still, and I need to get it to my agent because I'm procrastinating and totally doing what I need to be doing. All right, Miss Mira, what are you working on?
I am working on book 2 in my Slayers hockey series. So book 1 just came out this weekend. So Dirty Secret, I didn't get the actual paper copies, so I've only got the one with it's not for sale.
But at least they didn't put that right over his abs.
Yeah.
Can you show us that cover one more time, Mira? A little closer.
You know what? It almost looks like the black bar. Bar.
I know. They're like, these shoulders are too hot for you. You can't see them. But so yeah, I'm working on the second book in that series. I write sexy, fun, light, contemporary. These are hockey stories, so I'm just having tons of fun with it. I write a good mix, but I have been kind of connected with that hockey thing and really enjoying that right now. So,
can I ask you, where are you from?
I grew up in Chicago, so most of my books are set there. And I lived there through college and then spent 8 years in California. And now I'm in 15 years in Minnesota. So
Minnesota, okay. You've got that accent, that mid-north. What does it say? Mid-north? What is it called?
No, that's not right.
Midwest. I have the Midwest thing going hard. Everybody's like, man, you embraced that Minnesota twang thing, and I'm just like, it's home. So
finally, somebody that lives by me, Dawn.
Yeah. Well, everybody lives by you. I don't know.
I know. I should have
nobody lives by me. Nobody ever lives
on your
by
shoulder.
All right, Miss Sharon, what are you working on?
So I'm working on. So this book, the second book in my romantic thriller, just came out a couple weeks ago, and I am working on page proofs for book 3, which comes out in February. Truth, and I'm finishing up a novella that goes in between books 1 and book 2. This is book 1. So they went from the hunky man on book 1 to the iconic cover on book 2. because they found I had a good number of male readers.
Oh,
And yeah, so Sourcebooks, my publisher, made some changes. So I think they want to see, because the books are, I wrote romantic thrillers, but they're very National Treasure Dan Brownish with just a really hot romance in it. Yeah. So they found that men were picking them up. So that's why they decided to go with a very different kind of cover. So I am working on the novella, and I'm also doing the page proofs, and I'm starting book 4 in the series. So yeah, so it's just busy, just really, really busy, as you all know.
And you just got back from a vacation.
I did. My husband and I go away once a year alone together.
Nice.
Just once a year. It's much easier now that our kids are in college, but so we just came back from Jamaica, a whole week of Jamaica, and there was no. I didn't want to pay for the cellular service, the daily cell service, and the Wi-Fi was terrible. So it was wonderful. We did not pick up our phones, except for I used it as my watch, because I never watch anymore, so I have no way of telling the time. And as a camera, so my phone was basically a camera all week, a camera and a watch, and it was phenomenal. And Mira, I was telling Dylan and Dawn earlier, if I did not have to be on social media as an author, I wouldn't be on it at all. Yeah. I would. It was wonderful. It was so wonderful. It really was. It was just freeing. So it was,
yeah, it's nice to unplug every once in a while.
So yeah, so we got back.
Not that I know what that feels like, but I can imagine it would be nice to unplug for a while.
1 week a year, I get to unplug.
I get the shakes just thinking about it. I'm like I have to check. Where's my phone? Does it have a signal?
Oh. Yeah, and it takes a while to get used to, because you're constantly picking up your phone. That's what I realized. I'm constantly checking things.
Yeah.
And I don't even think about it anymore. And I think 10 years ago, I wasn't doing this.
Right.
I didn't have a phone. So.
Well, because our phones were all this big and they weighed, 8 pounds. So.
Exactly. So, yeah, so it was a really, really great trip. I got back late last night. So, and it was 95 degrees when I left, and sunny. Whoa. And there was a lot of alcohol involved, and I came home and it was 34 degrees, and it was cold, and sweaters.
Yeah.
I'm done with the alcohol for a year, because we just drank too much last week. So. So anyway, yeah, so it was great.
It sounds so fun.
But I was looking forward to tonight when I got home last night. It was I had this to look forward to, because I love doing the Romance Happy Hour.
Well, we love having you.
We do.
So glad you made it. Glad you didn't get stuck in Jamaica. That would have been horrible.
That would have been horrible. Right. Well, we already booked before we left. We booked our trip for next year, so we're good.
Nice.
Oh, that's great.
That's the way to do it.
It's nice having kids in college. While it's really expensive, it's also very, which is nice. So, yeah. So, and last time we were there last year, I was actually writing this book on the beach. So it was nice.
Oh,
I was on the beach with my laptop typing. And so it was so nice to be there this year and not writing. That was really, really wonderful. So it's just not fun. I mean, it sounds fun, but it's not fun to write on the beach.
So do you do it pretty much at a year exactly? So it would be, you wrote that book in a year exactly later. It's probably.
Actually, I'm sorry. It was this one. It was this one I was working on. Yeah. So this book was last year, beginning of November. And then we made some serious changes to the story as I was writing the story. I was talking to my agent, because we were in production. This one was in production. So we made some changes to the series, and we were talking about book 4. And so they gave me until the beginning of February. They actually, when I came home, they extended it. So
can I just say, though, you said this book was in production, and it sounds so much cooler than it feels.
I know.
Right now, I'm going through revisions with my agent, and I just feel bashing my head against the wall. But you said it's in production, and I thought, yeah, my book's in production too. That sounds so nice. It's not.
Yeah. So my editor is very clear about there's drafting, there's revisions, and then there's bookmaking.
Yeah.
In production. And once it hits production, it has a deadline. All of a sudden, you have to really step on it and make your deadline. So, but that's when all other revision, like the content revisions happen, and then the copy edits happen, and then the PDF galleys happen, and all that stuff. And there's still time to change things, but because the series is so interrelated, if I'm drafting a book and we decide in the previous book, oh, we want to throw this clue in, because it is very Dan Brownish, so there's just a lot of kinds of clues.
Yeah.
I still have time, to make, to throw those in there. Like, oh yeah, of course I've planned that.
That's what I love about writing. It's in the moment. Oftentimes you like, you don't think of the one-liner, and then you think of it hours later. And
exactly.
In writing, you get to go back and put that in, and then people just think that you planned it and you were witty all along.
It is so easy. You make it seem so
Right.
easy.
Right.
It's so smooth and flows so well, and you're like, oh yeah.
I'm so glad you think so. Thank you.
Only like 100 hours on that one scene.
Right. Yeah, that one line took me 4 days, and a bag of M&Ms, and you don't even know what to come up with. So.
Oh goodness.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to tell our readers too. Are we doing the information now or later? Afterwards?
I thought we were doing it afterwards.
Okay, we can do it afterwards.
Yes, so stay tuned to the end, because we have something exciting to share.
Yeah.
I know you just meant to plant that little nugget right there, Dawn.
I did. I wanted to like before and after and like stretch it all out. So you're like,
right. Our show is in production.
Yeah. I want to go with Mira. I am dying to hear about that guy's abs behind you. Okay, is it the one you're reading from, or which one are you reading from?
Okay, I am going to be reading from Dirty Secret. So he's just like my forever boyfriend behind me. So it doesn't matter what book I'm working on. He just gets to like hang out and, inspire me, I guess. All right. But no, I'll be reading from Dirty Secret.
All right.
And just to kind of set it up and so everybody like knows what the Dirty Secret is, it's basically it's a hockey romance, and Von Vassar is the Chicago's least favorite player. He's like the guy who kind of got in on a trade. He has been lifelong rivals with the team captain and is coming in and just got into a fight with him the first week he's there. So lots of friction and not a real sense of belonging. And what has happened is he realizes that this woman that he hooked up with last year is actually the captain's little sister. And neither one of them thought that it was ever going to, that they were ever going to see each other again. And suddenly it's like, oh, wait, who are you? And now there's this secret. And so, but because they're both connected to this team, they keep running into each other. So this scene picks up where they're at a charity event together, and he wasn't expecting to see her there. But all right, let's just go. Natalie's fingers slide free of mine. I set the box aside as she takes a few steps away and then turns back to meet my eyes. Do you ever wonder what it would be like if things were different? She gives me a small shrug. If we could be friends. Friends? I'd like to be the kind of good guy where that would be enough, but all it takes is looking at her to know it wouldn't. Wetting her lips with the tip of her tongue, she walks through the piles of boxes. Her fingers trail across cardboard before she stops at a fold-out table, set up with a laptop and the clipboards the volunteers were using during the event. Leaning back on it, she looks up at me, her eyes soft. That would be something, huh? If we were friends, can you imagine it? There's something about the way she says it, a vulnerability that won't allow me to let her down. So even though I know I'd want more, I take a couple steps in her direction and nod. Sure I can. I'd be lucky to have a friend like you. I jet my chin at her. You could give me some pointers on my slap shot. Christ, that smile. But then it's gone and it feels like the sun just set for the last time. Allie. what if it didn't have to be such a big deal, Vaughn? Her eyes search mine. I mean, would it really be that big of a deal? It would. No one would believe that a friendship with Natalie Baxter was about anything but me fucking with her brother, which means a friendship with her would cost me my season, and that would cost me my career. She knows it. This girl understands the world I live in almost better than I do. But for whatever reason, in this moment, the reality of that world isn't where she wants to be. And so I cross my arms and listen. We've bumped into each other enough times that it makes sense we'd say hello after the games, right? Have a few private jokes between us about that time at the book drive, she says, a soft plea in her two blue eyes. A plea I can't resist. And at the rink, the memory of finding her there, the sweaty and pink cheek, so fucking pretty, pulls at the corner of my mouth with all the kids. She nods, pleased that I'm playing along. So we talk a little, but not too much. I step up to the table, leaning into it beside her. Not too long. Because Greg will hate it. But if it's just a minute here and there, what's he really going to say, right? Baxter? He'll have plenty to say, and my guess is that it wouldn't be with words. It would be with his fists. But that's not what I tell her, because the smile of this game of what if is earning me as too sweet to give up, and maybe I want to see the kind of ending Natalie would write for us, even if it's only within this bubble in the back room of the book drive. So I take another step into the shared fantasy. Nothing. He wouldn't say anything, because we're just talking about volunteering. Her voice softens, and little by little, our talks last longer. And it's no big deal, because it would be a gradual thing. She nods. Slow. And then when I leave, because I will, I have to, I want to, you'll have a few people to meet you at Belfast for a goodbye drink. And by the end, and by then, everyone will know we're friends, so it won't be any big deal at all when I give you a hug goodbye. I can practically feel her chest pressed against mine, her slim frame filling my arms for a minute. And then I'll let you go. She nods once, some of the light in her eyes dimming as she stares at the floor. It ought to be the end of the story, except I don't want it to be. Turning into her, I reach for her, tipping her face toward mine. And then maybe one day, because we're friends, I'd fly you out to one of my games. In Oregon? Yeah. I shouldn't be touching her, but her skin is so soft I can't make myself stop. And this time, you'll be wearing a jersey with my name on it. Christ, just the idea of having her wrapped up in my number sparks something in my chest that shouldn't be there, something hot and possessive. I'd cheer for you, and you'd knock on the glass as you skated past. And after the win, because if she was there, there's no way we wouldn't win, I'd take you to dinner so we could catch up. We'd talk for as long as we liked, because it wouldn't matter anymore if anyone saw. And I'd make you laugh so you were smiling just for me. And after, you'd take me back to my hotel, she whispers. I should. But even in the context of this friendly fantasy that's more than a year off and will never actually happen, I know that's not the way it would go. Giving into the pull inside me, the one I feel every time this woman is within sight, I plant one hand on the table beside her hip. I'm crowding her, standing so close I can smell the faint scent of her shampoo. Her pupils are blown wide, and I can hear the change in her breathing, see the flush across her chest and neck. That's not what I'd do, I say, my voice gravelly low. Her lips part, and then she asks quietly, why not? The shyness that gets to me in ways nothing and no one else can is there, goading me on, making me take it further. Because after dinner, I take your hand to help you up, and even though I'm trying to be good, even though I know better, my fingers slide around the back of her neck, weaving into her dark curls. Something happens when we touch. What? She asks, breathless and beautiful. You look at me like you are right now. I bow my head towards hers, and all the good intentions in the world aren't enough to stop me. Vaughn. But whatever she's about to say next gets lost in the brush of my mouth against hers. This wasn't part of the plan. It's a mistake, and we both know it. But when her hand moves to my chest, her fingers closing in the fabric, all I can think is, this is right. I kiss her again, groaning as I sink into the softness of her mouth, tasting the quake of her breath and the give of her lips opening beneath mine, the tentative stroke of her tongue. shy and bold, perfect. My arm tightens around her waist, gathering her closer until she's pressing into me with all those sweet curves and light touches, clinging and holding. She feels so good. Allie, I rasp against the skin along her neck, breathing her in while I try to hold myself back. So, ta-da! I don't know whether it was 10 minutes or not.
Sexy.
So
That was
that's a
wonderful.
little bit of Vaughn and Natalie.
I don't think I saw. Oh wait, Linda does have a question.
I've got it.
All right.
I'm on it. I got the
Oh.
questions.
Oh.
I thought you were going to chat first.
Right, we are chatting about
Okay.
how sexy that book is.
That was really enjoyable.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to write. I'm telling you, these people I feel like friends now. So I'm just like, oh, let's hang out. You have them in your head for so long, and then all of a sudden they're like set free and cute.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh,
Yep.
my imaginary friend here.
I love that trope. The brother's best friend and just all the tension and
it was just so much fun
conflict.
to write with that.
Mhm.
And what's fun is that Greg, the overprotective brother who's been the lifelong rival to Vaughn, is actually the hero in Dirty Player, which is free right now. So I think for the people who've read him before, they're like, wait, no, he's my book boyfriend. What is going on with this? Because in this book, you really see a different side of him. He's this overprotective brother who's just got this guy that has been under his skin since he was like 15 years old. And so it's like the two of them butting heads. That was just a lot of fun to write. But there's so much more with it because the sister Natalie is actually a former hockey player in high school and in college herself. And she has spent her life living in the shadow of the superstar. And so even her own family is just like they can't see her behind him. And for Vaughn, he's a year younger, and his whole life he's kind of been stuck in that shadow with this guy too, who like went into the draft before he did. And he's a year older in school, so it's like he was on a different team, and it's just there's always been this thing, and he's the guy who's always in his way. And now he's like, he's in his way with the girl. He's in his way with the team. He's like, and there's just all of this stuff. So working this one out was just, it was a lot of fun, and it really had a lot of layers to it too. So it was a nice time for me with spending time with these guys. So, and I love this world that I've got going on. I write standalone romances, but where you can really pick anyone up at any time. But they're all kind of part of this same little world where you walk into the bar and you're like, oh wait, that's the hero from like 4 books ago, And so it's fun to have people that are connected, but to be able to kind of jump in anywhere. So,
Sorry. Did you have to do a lot of research for this book? For our series, I should say.
I do. It's not a crazy heavy hockey amount of hockey. Like I didn't get crazy technical. My kids have been playing hockey for like, I don't know, 8 years. They're teens, so they started little, it's very different. It's very, very different. But I love to watch it. And even though I didn't know all of the rules and everything when I started, over the years you pick up you pick stuff up, and I love to watch the Blackhawks. The Chicago Blackhawks are my favorite team. So I'm always like, my husband will be like, fast forward through this. They're like talking about stuff. And I'm like, let me get my notebook. You don't you rush past this. I'm like, there's an interview. Let me see what he says. So it's, I do. And I actually do. I'm constantly digging stuff up on the internet. I'm like, can hockey players do this? What happens when this happens? And I, normally it's always been like, I turn to my husband. I'm like, hey, what happens when this goes on? And it used to be that he always had the answer, and now he's just like, oh, I don't know, Mira. He's like, I had no idea. So it's kind of, I guess the depth that I get into it now is a little different, but I will tell you that the research is not bad. So
unless it's like scratch and sniff research, because my husband plays hockey and there is nothing like the smell of, like those breezers that never get washed. And so
no, I had to have like the grossest, like the strongest air fresheners in the car. We had stuff tucked into all of their bags.
Yep. It doesn't matter.
No. And, even my daughter would get into the car after practice and I'd be like, but it's just, I don't know. It was my twins that played. So boy-girl twins. So I would watch different, they're different teams and always different schedules. And so you get one, you think you're free of the smell for a little while, and then you got to run back and get the other. And it's going into those locker rooms. Oh,
God, just even talking about it takes me back. It's like, you love someone when you ride in the car with them, home from a hockey game. That's true love right there.
I know. Absolutely. Although I will tell you that, I think that I'd maybe be like more forgiving in certain circumstances. Like, say, Vaughn was getting into my car after his practice. And he was so hot because he'd been working really hard. And so he had to like take his shirt off and like mop himself off.
I'm pretty sure there are a number of readers who would gladly lick the sweat off of
I know. I'm like, I
that
feel
little
like
trench in between his six-pack if
I know. I
need
feel
required.
like it's a good clean sweat, like a hard work sweat.
Right.
Masculine and fresh.
Because,
I don't know.
the hockey players we read about don't sweat like real hockey players.
It's
like sparkly sweat, I'm sure.
Oh, God.
Totally.
Oh, my God. That's so funny.
All right. Should we ask the question out on?
Yes.
Before it goes too far up? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Linda had two questions. The first one was, seriously, how do you take care of jock straps? I don't know if anyone is...
Not my responsibility.
I don't know if anyone is qualified to answer that or not.
I mean, I don't even know. Like, they're the kind that my kids had to use were like built into these weird little shorts and stuff, and wash it.
Yeah, that's son used for,
like, put it on the little
everything
hangers, let it dry. But I know I would probably prefer not to get really close to like even bonds. Like, I don't know.
Some things are just better kept.
I know, the mystery. We're like, shh.
That's right. All right. The other question is, besides writing, what is something you are really good at that few people know about you?
Oh,
and I think she intends that for all of us or all of you. Oh, Steve says wash them. I don't know if it's that easy. You don't want to melt anything in the dryer.
I actually put like a ton of hockey stuff through the dryer. So I like throw their pad or the washer and the dryer. I throw it at their pads, their elbow pads, like shin guards, all that stuff. It all goes into the wash. And I guess because they're growing out of it so regularly, I'm like, well, if it doesn't last, we had to replace it next year anyway.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Some of those guys get pretty superstitious about washing stuff during playoff season.
Mine don't. They never got really freaked out about it. So it was, I guess I was lucky, but I know there were a lot of kids who, I can't wash this. I can't cut my hair. I can't, blah, blah. Like, okay.
Right.
I don't know. But, I'll tell you, like, when you ask, like, what's something you do that it's funny because coming off of a book that's just released, I'm like, oh my God, nothing. Like, I do nothing at all except for this. I'm like, I write the book and then I market the book and I like do all the admin and all the other stuff. And I'm like, and I feel like I never stop, but I actually am a very good baker. So I suppose like, and I'm a stress baker. So even though I think like, boy, sometimes it feels like, it's just particularly this time of the whole process, it feels like there's no escape from it. But, so it's good that I like it, but, I do find that I like to bake and I'll make like plenty of exceptions for that. So,
you and I should hang out because you're a stress baker and I'm a stress eater.
we are such a pair. I know, like, I love it.
It's like a match made in heaven right there.
I'll make cookies, I'll make brownies. It'd be delicious.
Oh, that's funny.
How about you, Sharon? What are you good at?
I do.
How did she phrase that exactly? What are you good at something you're really good at that few people know about you?
So actually, I'm really, really good at canning and preserving food.
Oh,
nice.
I should hang out too because I want to learn how to do that better.
Oh, yeah. I water bath can and pressure can. And my grandmother taught me. And I don't know anybody who does this. And my family mocks me endlessly because I'm always putting up cans of stuff. And they're like, who's going to eat this, Mom? I'm like, when the zombies come, you're going to be really happy.
That's right.
Open a can of stew and it'll all be good. So
I go to Sharon's house.
I know. I'm like, man, I don't know how to do that at all.
I don't tell many people. I don't really even know about it.
I love it. I've only ever canned jam. That's the only thing I've done successfully.
Jam's actually really, really hard.
Oh,
I tried. Have you ever? Oh, I don't know where are you at, Sharon?
I'm in Virginia.
Oh, I'm in Virginia. Where at?
Yeah, so I'm up in the north.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I'm outside of Washington D.C.
So, in Alaska they have fireweed, and I think they have some in Montana too. And it's a flower. But Alaskans, and they taught me how to do it. That's the one thing I did do successfully is you make jam out of this flower. And you just, I don't know how I like boiled it and all this other crap, but that was like the one successful thing I did. Except for one batch was successful. The other one we called syrup.
Yes, I have lots of syrup. Yeah, a jam's hard to set. I mean, there's an actual real chemical process to it. And if you don't get the combination of sugar and pectin and heat at the right time together, it won't set. There's nothing you can do about it. But that's why I like pressure canning, because you throw it in a jar, you pop it in a pressure canner, and it's done. Like, it's just super easy. So that's the one thing I do that most people don't know about, because if I told them, I don't think they would even know what I'm talking about.
You guys come to Montana. We would love you. Bring your jam. Bring all your.
I would love to go to a town where you can walk in the grocery store and buy canning supplies.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, you can do that here.
Yeah.
It's really, I have to hunt and pack and really search for canning supplies.
Really?
Or order them online.
Well, you're in like a metropolis.
Yeah.
I am.
So, I mean, they sell all that stuff at Target, and you need a Fleet Farm. Do you have Fleet Farm by you, Mira?
No.
You need a Fleet Farm.
Yep. Yeah. They're a couple stores where I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, what are you for? Like, how do you work?
Yeah, they have all that stuff around here.
Yeah, sometimes I get it at Walmart, or what I do is I order it online at Walmart and deliver it to the store.
Yep.
So that works out fine too. But the store's looking at me like, what is this for? Like, what do you need? It's funny, people say, are you really planning a wedding, like with all the mason jars? Like, I don't know. Like,
I'm gonna be doing some mason jar crafting.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's
what everybody assumes I'm doing with mason jars. So, yeah.
How about you, Dawn? What are you good at?
I think we know what I do. I craft like a mother.
Your Halloween decorations are amazing.
Thank you. I used my children. I did not suffocate them. I want to point that out.
When you said you used your children, I thought that they were still there. Like, I thought that was your kids that you'd left on your front porch.
Yes, I put them out there. They pose like this and don't move. You can do that after Halloween. No, I just wrap them in saran wrap and then clear tape, and I cut them out of it. They did not like it at all. They were
Wow.
one of my children was really so sweaty that the saran wrap turned into tape against his skin.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
that's really funny.
But yeah, the clear tape holds the form, and then we just stuck some lights in it, and it's just like glowing and eerie. And we don't win this
Good idea. Is that an Pinterest idea?
Very interesting.
Heck yeah, Pinterest is my bestie. Yeah. We're like this, me and Pinterest.
Oh, your husband's in the comments saying other things you're good at, but
Well,
I'm not going to read those online.
Oh.
you say more than just she's good at everything.
No, but I made you look.
Okay, yes, you did, because I was scared for a second.
I don't know what I'm good at. I knit.
Oh,
So
Who's good at keeping me on track?
I'm a knitter. Well, nobody's good at that, but I do try. Which, speaking of, we should probably let Sharon read, don't you think? Before we run out of time.
All right, Sharon, are you ready?
Oh, yeah. I'm all set.
All right, we're going to pop you up there.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm going to read the prologue of One Dark Wish, and it's the second book in the Deadly Forest romantic thriller series. The man bowed. Sarah Monroe hiked her straw bag higher on her shoulder and followed the officer down the Savannah Police Department's hallway. He held a cell phone to his ear and she yanked his arm. A woman died tonight. He nodded, but his deep frown, as well as his dismissive wave, told her he wasn't too concerned about the murder. The fact Sarah had found the body in the Savannah Preservation Office's courtyard fountain. Was a death in the historic district so commonplace that it didn't warrant its own investigator? Frustrated, she followed him around the corner toward the second-floor landing when her cell phone buzzed. It was a text from her father. "Where are you?" She halted near the stairs, her fingers hovering over the phone's keyboard. She debated how much to tell him. Then again, he probably already knew. She texted, "I'll be home soon, Dad." Someone bumped her as they passed, and she moved closer to the vending machine that carried only rows of Coke cans. Her officer stood nearby, talking on the phone, while federal, state, and local LEOs congregated in groups around the open area. Her told her that numerous forces all trying to combat the rising crime rate. She and her dad had returned to Savannah 9 months ago, and in that short time, they both noticed the uptick in drug use and violence. "It's dark," her father texted back. "I'll come and get you." No. Not only did she not want her father worrying about her, he wasn't supposed to drive. "I'm leaving soon. Drink your tea." He texted back, "I hate that tea. It tastes like SHIT. Despite the ache in her chest, she smiled. Yes, he hated the tea, yet it was the only thing that helped him with his returning seizures, and if he thought that even being even more cranky than usual meant she'd ease up on the herbal leaves, he was wrong. "I don't care," she texted back. "Drink it." She her off, still on his phone, and debated leaving. If the cops wanted her statement, they knew where she worked, the same place where a woman had just been murdered. "I'm leaving, officer, but I know what I saw." He ignored her, and she turned towards the stairs. "Sarah?" A male voice cut through the station's din, the ringing phones and the metal chairs scraping along 70-year-old linoleum. She blinked one man into focus. Tall, broad shoulders, long blonde hair tied at the base of his neck, angular face, and deep ocean green eyes. The kind a girl could lose herself in. Nate? Was that her breathy voice? She swallowed and a warm flush rose from her neck to her cheeks. She wasn't sure, but since yes, she'd felt shaky and incoherent and restless. Did he know what I'd do to his map, she thought. I heard what happened. He touched her arm before shoving both hands in the front pockets of his jeans. His biker jacket stretched across his shoulders, the black leather rustling with the movement. "Are you okay?" I wasn't hurt. She stared at the red and white vending machine and blinked. Adopted daughters of cops didn't cry. They endured. "This is my fault, Nate. I'd asked my assistant to do some research for me, but I had no idea she was staying late." "This isn't your fault." He leaned in closer, the scar on his cheek appearing deeper and more ragged. His pine-scented aftershave tickled her nose. "I am so sorry." She put palms on her chiffon skirt, relieved he didn't seem to realize she'd secretly photographed the 17th century map he'd brought to the preservation office for her to look at. The map included the only layout she'd ever seen of the remote colonial-era cemetery of lost children on the Isle of Grace. Even though the property's owner and Nate himself had both told her to stay away, she was determined to visit as soon as possible. She was a terrible person. My dad was a police officer in Boston, so unfortunately I'm used to things like this. I just hoped Savannah was safer. "Nate?" A man built like a wrestler with long black braided hair yelled from the lobby on the first floor. "We gotta go, man." Nate ignored him and kept his attention on her mouth. Couldn't help but, "Oh, what did you see?" She licked her lips. "You'd never believe me." She wasn't sure she believed it herself. Loud voices downstairs distracted her. 2 military policemen in full uniform and carrying weapons had entered the station. "That's odd. What do you think they want?" Nate took her hand and led her into a nearby alcove. "What did you see, Sarah?" She pressed her hands against his chest. His heart pounded, and he radiated heat like an engine revving. "What are you doing?" "Nate," the man with the braid ran up the stairs. "Time to go. Now." "Please, Sarah," Nate said. "Tell me." The MPs were right behind Nate's buddy. "In the shadows," Sarah said. "I saw a man bow." Nate shuddered right before he kissed her. His gentle hands on her shoulders at odds with his demanding lips. His warmth wrapped her in an erotic haze, and he tasted like mint and summer breezes. Had she moaned? Good golly Moses. "Excuse me, ma'am." Nate broke off the kiss because the man with the braid had taken his arm and dragged him down the hallway to the emergency exit, the MPs on their heels. Chills scurried along her arms, and she wrapped her sweater around herself. She touched her swollen lips, still stunned, still tasting his peppermint mouthwash, still inhaling his scent that reminded her of freshly cut grass and pine trees. Nate glanced at her before he hit the metal exit and disappeared. The door slammed shut with a loud reverb. He'd locked it. When they couldn't force it open, they turned and ran past her, one of them brushing her skirts as they headed down the stairs. What do MPs want with Nate Walker? She thought. "Miss Monroe?" The officer who'd been ignoring her touched her elbow. "I'm ready for your statement." She pulled away, her attention on the MPs racing out the front doors. She was a woman who sought the truth in both her professional and personal life, but tonight's revelation was more than a cheap magazine tell-all. It was an earth-shattering event that stripped away the delusions she'd been carrying her entire life. One delusion in particular. When Nate's lips had touched hers, she discovered she'd never truly understood what it meant to be kissed. "Ma'am," the police officer said. She'd go home to her father. But as she followed the officer into an interrogation room, she couldn't help but wonder if she'd ever see Nate again. No, if she was being honest with herself, which she always tried to be, she wondered if she'd ever kiss Nate again. So this book is about the whole series is about a group of ex-Green Berets that were dishonorably discharged, and they have no idea why. And they're now in hiding in Savannah running a really cheap, rundown, pirate-themed gym, like old-time pirate themes, because that runs through that whole city, that kind of history. And Sarah is a historian, and she's trying to solve the only unsolved 17th century cipher that was used during the Revolutionary War. It has never been solved. She's trying to solve it, and it turns out that Nate has to stop her from solving it, or one of his men will die. And throughout the whole series, these ex-Green Berets who are dishonorably discharged after a horrendous contemporary mission in Afghanistan, they're struggling to find out what they have in common with something that happened in the late 1600s. So the books all take place in the South, in Savannah, New Orleans, and Charleston. And there's a lot of pirate history, a lot of pirate lore, things like that, that is juxtaposed against this group of men with no money, no weapons, desperate to figure out what's going on, or kind of, living off the grid, I guess you could say, but actually in a city. And unlike a lot of the other books out there where they're like black ops and they're working undercover and they're funded, these guys have nothing. They have no money. They barely have enough money for food, and they have no money for ammo, and it's all very haphazard. And because they were all just recently discharged, and they're still trying to figure out what's going on. So that's the prologue for this is the second book in the series.
Wow. It sounds really good.
That sounds really complicated.
Yeah,
they're very complicated. They're long too. They're 140,000 words.
Oh wow!
Yeah, every one of them is like over 500 pages.
How long does it take you to write that?
It takes me 9 months to draft. Each book takes me a solid 9 months to draft, and then I take another 6 to 8 weeks in revising before I dump it all in the lap of my editor.
Yeah.
And then
how much research do you do for it?
Excuse me?
Your research. How much research do you do?
I do a ton of research because everything's based in truth. All of the conspiracy theories that run through the stories is all based on a lot of the unsolved mysteries that happened during the early colonial times in this country, like unsolved ciphers, the first about a poisonous lily that was grown in Georgia during colonial times, brought over from Italy and used as a weapon, as a biological weapon by pirates, the early pirates. So they would poison people and then use and then use the antidote as a bribe to get them to do what they needed to do, so they can maintain control over the population. Things like that. I'm trying to think. Gosh, because I get confused between the books and what the main mystery is of the books. And this one. They're searching for the identity. There's only one person in the entire history of our country who's ever witchcraft ever named. And it happened in Charleston 10 years after Salem witch trials. And the heroine in this book is a direct relation to that unnamed witch. And they're trying to find out why she was never named. And that has to do with something that happened in Afghanistan 400 years later. So, and all of the mysteries tie together as you go.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
wow.
So I do a ton of research. I have spent a lot of time in New Orleans, Savannah, Charleston. My husband's from Charleston. My parents lived in Savannah, and I've spent a lot of time in New Orleans. So I have an accent. Done a lot of work in the archives down there, because a lot of the stuff is not online. And I'm also a librarian. Previous was as a librarian, scientific research librarian, but still. But I also know that most of the world's information is still not online.
Does your husband have a Southern accent?
No, he does not. But I also don't have, I'm from New Jersey originally. I no longer have my New Jersey accent. So we're neutral ground here.
That's good. I lived in New Jersey for 3 years.
Did you?
Of course you did.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And you never picked up an accent?
Thank goodness.
I worked hard to get rid of mine. I was from the northern part of the state, and I had a very thick accent. Yeah. And I didn't know that until I went south and met my husband's family. They're like, "Oh, accent." I'm kidding.
No, I'm from Montana, right? And when my husband's from this Virginia area. Well, he was born in Washington. We'll say that because he likes to claim Washington. But he grew up here. And he would always tell me that I had a Canadian accent. So, I have a Canadian accent. But Mira, so when Mira's talking here, it's like kind of triggering my accent that I grew up with.
I'm luring you all in. I'm like, oh, yeah.
So I'm having to really focus on not saying boat. Yeah, he used to be like, "Oh, you're so cute with your little Canadian accent." Like that.
Mine comes out when I'm drinking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Are you Italian? Here we go. Like, are you Italian?
No, I'm Irish.
Oh, good. All
right. Why good? What's wrong with Italian? Oh, okay. Oh gosh. All right. Let's not get Dawn started talking about New Jersey Italians, because that's not going to end well.
Oh my gosh.
We did have a question. Linda is just full of questions tonight. Everyone else is being quiet, but she is wondering, what is the strangest thing you've ever had to research for your books?
I do a ton of research. I've had to do a lot of research on pirate lore, old pirate, like Blackbeards and things like that. And probably the strangest thing I had to research was, so in New England, right, when the Puritans first came and they built their barns, they drew these like daisy circles. They were like circles. They look like spiregrass, the old kind of spiregrass we used to play with. So like swirls within swirls. And they would come in barns, used to off witches and curses and stuff. Well, Blackbeard, on his ships, the first thing he did when he took over a ship, he would remount all of the cannons, and he'd put these lead aprons, I guess, kind of between the cannon and the big hole that would go out. I don't know that much about ships, but anyway, but on those lead aprons, he hand carved all of these witches' marks, like all of these unusual daisy wheels. And they didn't know that until off the coast of North Carolina just a few years ago. There was, one of the massive hurricanes off of Wilmington, and a piece of metal washed up and found daisy marks, and they were able to trace it back to one of his ships that had sunk 300 years ago. They've never been able to pull out, but I guess bits and pieces were coming apart with all of these hurricanes. And so they found these big metal sheets or lead sheets, really heavy, that had all of this really strange markings on them. And it turned out he was horribly paranoid and terrified of witches.
That's way cool.
Isn't that interesting?
We're gonna have to talk. We're gonna have to like have coffee, meet, and have coffee or something, because I have I write historical, so, and contemporary, but my historicals I write Western, but I also write American seafarer, because the Revenue Cutter Service, like the Coast Guard, was the Revenue Cutter Service. They were pirate hunters,
Right.
and so that's what I write, Lighthouse and that. So I love to research that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's
I find it fascinating.
It's fascinating. It's really my first thought was, because I just assumed, I mean, you hear these famous names, right? Like Blackbeard and Captain Kidd and things like that, and they make movies of them, and but you don't really think of them as real people. And then as I was researching it, I mean, all of these, the Wilmington Library was very generous, and they were sharing stuff with Neil Lyon, and this was in North Carolina, and it just makes you realize this was like a real man. Like, he was a real person, not somebody in a movie.
Yeah.
And he was violent and had this, did all these things, but he was also afraid of witches. I mean, of all of the things to be afraid of, when you're like the most feared pirate in all of the 17th century, you're afraid of witches? Like, it was just, it just was interesting to me, like, because it just made him more real. Like, he was actually a real person with real fears, real worries, just like you or I worry about stuff.
And not to digress, but I've also lived in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Excuse me? I think you froze.
I lived in Wilmington, North Carolina.
You did. It's a great town. It gets hit by hurricanes.
Yeah.
But my husband's in Charleston, so they get hit too.
Yeah, I've never lived there. So there's that.
There's still time, Dawn.
Yeah,
I'm comment from Catherine. She says she's right outside Wilmington, and now we're curiosity. Catherine, there's I think it's called the Wilmington Historical Society. They actually have a lot of the stuff on record, and they had a small, I can't remember where it is exactly, but they have a small display, I think, still up if you were interested.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the books are really fun to write, but they're also really, believe it or not, they're really sexy. Like, they're really kind of hot.
You said a lot of men read your books. I think that men secretly, like, they don't want to admit it, but I think they secretly love the romance in the book.
I think they do too. I think they do too. I mean, so there's enough thriller and action to keep them interested, but then you've got the romance.
It's sexy romance.
Yeah. So it is. It's like Dan Brown with sex. I mean, like that kind of where they actually like each other.
See, when I was in the Coast Guard, they used to make fun of me because I had my romance novels. I was a gunner's mate, so we were in school, and there was like 20 guys, and then me and one other chick, and I had my romance novels. And I was like reading during breaks and stuff, and they used to call it my girl porn.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so I would tease them because I mean they have real porn, so I mean. Like, this is my girl porn, you want to borrow it? So I think that they love those sex scenes, and then they also love the action and the secretly.
Well, I had enough readers that my publisher was able to identify that they changed the title. They pushed off the publication date and changed all the covers.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, that's. I mean, they did a beautiful job on the iconic covers. I mean, I still miss the man. I like the man, but I guess, I think your husband says most men are not romantic. I think they really are. Don't kill the dream.
Oh, Steve, go take a bubble bath. We learned way too much about Dawn's husband when he watched the show. A lot. So.
When I was I also have twins too, Mira, but I was in the hospital for a good part of my pregnancy, and I was on the perinatal floor, And my mother-in-law sent me a box of romance novels, and I was very excited. I'm like, oh, now I've got all of this time, months and months and months. I'm just going to read romance novels. The first day, the nurse comes into me with a big frown, and she goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just reading." I'm like, "I'm not moving. I promise you, I'm not getting up. I'm not moving." And she yanked the book out of my hand, and she said, "No romance novels." She packed the box and left, and didn't tell me why. I'm like offended. Turns out they make you contract. As you get excited and interested in the story, you start contracting. So they were forbidden on the perinatal floor, and yet there were some orderlies that would pass them around underneath the trays to between people. And you had to, we had to promise, like, I would skip the sex scenes just in case they would not find out that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow, that was like contraband.
I know. I can't even imagine. I think I'd like wrestle them if they tried to take it out of my hands. Like, get your hands off me.
Did you get extra Jello or anything for trading your romance novels?
No. Oh, they gave me candy bars because I wasn't putting
Okay.
in. Oh, good.
Oh, see, that's all right then.
It had to be worth something.
Yeah.
Well, does anyone have any other questions for Mira or Sharon? Because otherwise, we're coming up on 9 o'clock, aren't we?
Yeah. Don't buy so quickly.
Well, my 9 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's 10 o'clock for me.
Well, I don't see any others. Oh, we didn't get to hear from Mira. What's the most interesting thing you've ever had to research? Besides sweaty, smelly hockey clothes.
In my Dare to Love series, I have the first book was Truth or Dare, and I had to research a lot of paternity like law and all this weird kind of quirky circumstances, because the hero had this situation where he was desperately trying to get this child back that he believed was his, until his girlfriend had told him that it wasn't. And he'd spent years, raising this child. And so I was a lot of calls to my lawyer friends and, like digging into the internet and trying to figure all this stuff out. And yeah, that was an interesting one. So not quite as colorful as yours, Sharon. I'm like fascinated. I'm just like story time with Sharon. I like it.
Well, nothing screams romance like pirate lore. So,
What about you, Dylan? What's the most you've had to crazy thing?
Pig sex, I think. I had to research when I had baby back in All American Cowboy, I had to figure out pigs and breeding and how long they're pregnant. And it's too bad Tanya isn't on here tonight, because she would back me up with that. She said that my rendition was totally realistic.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So all that research paid off.
Good research. Yeah, I've only researched how to kill people without leaving a trace. Poison, what kind of poison to use, but I've never.
Well, now you know, it's an Italian lily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, Sharon didn't tell us which one. You'll have to tune in next time for the answer to that.
All right, well, we do have some announcements to make, Dylan.
Go for it, Dawn.
All right, so we have a guest host next time because Miss Dylan is going to be super busy at a conference down in Texas. And if the guest host, he's not going to let me show his face right now, but it will be my husband. He is going to be hosting with me. He won't be reading though. And which it was like, he agreed to host, and then he's like, wait, I thought I agreed to read. I said, no, you agreed to host. So you get one step further from reading, and that's hosting. So you'll get to meet him next time. And November 21st, we Dylan and I are starting a new project on Romance Happy Hour. We're going to be starting a book club. Our first book is going to be, and I need to bring it up. I don't know why I didn't.
Oh my gosh, you're not very well prepared for this, are you?
So not real prepared.
In case you haven't noticed, we don't rehearse.
We don't at all. We wing it all the time. So it is Miss Sheila Roberts. She's a good friend of mine. She's going to be joining us for our book club. She's going to be our November book club author. And we're going to be reading Christmas from the Heart. So that's her new release this year. And she's super excited about it, and so am I. And she looks amazing, and I adore her. So be nice to her when we go on, when she comes on the 21st.
Are you talking to me specifically or everyone in general?
And I'm also going to say, and don't let her know that I'm a total crazy freak girl online most of the time.
So we're going to try this and see how it goes, right?
Yes, we are. We're trying it out.
Because in November, our fourth Thursday falls on Thanksgiving this year. So we're not going to, as much as we love all of our viewers, we are not going to spend our Thanksgiving evening with you. But we are going to do an episode on November 21st. Right?
Yes, November 21st, we'll be doing with our book club.
We'll be book club.
With Sheila. And next time, November, I want to say 11th.
Well, it would have to be the 14th, right?
14th? Dang it.
Yes.
11, 14. I knew there was an 11 somewhere.
I know. Math is hard.
It's super hard when it's on. So we're going to be having Denise Dixon and Julie Johnstone. Is that how you say your name, Johnstone? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so we'll have that, and then we will have Sheila, and then we will go eat turkey and get super fat for Christmas and the holidays.
Sounds great.
And we do have a giveaway live, open through the weekend for Mira and Sharon. They both have goodies up for grabs. If you look at the Facebook page, you can enter there. And I think that's it. That's all our big news, right?
Well, I have one little news. It's not big. My Kensington novel, Whitewater Passion, will be going on sale November 1st.
Cool.
Congratulations. 99 cents. And I just found that out. So I got to get that all ready to go. And so I just thought I'd tell you guys first.
So we'll make sure we post that on the page too when that comes up. So
yes, absolutely. All right. 3 minutes past, so we better let you go. Because we've been trying to get under an hour, and it's not ever working for us.
It's because we all like to talk.
It's just so fun.
Really.
So much fun. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you guys for coming so much.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. This was fun.
And
thank you, Mira, for bringing the special guest behind you.
Yeah.
That offered inspiration.
I know.
John's going to lick the screen now as we sign off. Just kidding.
I will see you next time.
All right. Bye. Thanks again. Bye-bye.